And welcome back to the program this morning, everybody. Much like my guest in the first segment, my next guest is not letting her loss in the 2022 election stop her fight for change she'd like to see. She's now launching an organization to, quote, lead Oregon in a new direction. Christine Drazan joins us now. Thank you for being here. It's been a long time.
It has been. It's good to see you again. It's good to be back.
Good to see you as well. Remind people now, you were the Republican nominee for Oregon governor in 22. You lost to now Governor Tina Kotek by a couple of percentage points. Also served in the Oregon House of Representatives, were the Republican leader there for a couple of years as well. Tell us about your new organization and why you are launching this.
You know, we have in Oregon continued to have a need for balance. And over the course of the governor's race, I had the opportunity to talk to Oregonians about issues I care very deeply about, which Oregonians themselves care about. But we have found on the other side of the election, not much has changed. You can look out on our streets and know that we still are struggling with this drug crisis. We still see homelessness. Our communities are still facing challenges with public safety. We've seen 30,000 kids leave our schools since COVID. Over 17,000 Oregonians have left our state rather than stay and demand better. And this organization really came from that continued commitment that I have inside myself to do whatever I can in every opportunity I can take to just make a difference. And when I ran for office the first time, I ran for state rep. And I can remember being in this Grange, and it was a bunch of candidates running, and it was everybody in Clackamas County, and everybody got the same question: why are you running for office? And my answer then was, I just want to make a difference. I just want to make a difference. And it's the same today. I came off of a bruising race for governor of my home state, and then you had to get up the next morning and say, what now? Do you leave? Do you lean in? Do you learn? What do you do next? And for me, that led to a desire to just keep trying to make a difference. With or without a title, with or without a structure and a system around me, there's an opportunity to amplify the voices of Oregonians with this organization, and I'm really excited about it.
Tell me how your organization will bring about the changes that you would like to see.
So what we have right now is, in this organization, is an opportunity to engage directly with Oregonians themselves. And so it's an opportunity to get across the state and sit down, you know, in communities with Oregonians and say, what are your struggles? What are your challenges? What do you see as the solutions? And to continue that conversation and then be a platform for them in a way that is not limited by party and isn't about an election. This is about Oregonians continuing to care, continuing to be impacted by the status quo and lack of change, and to give them a voice moving forward. The C4 will serve as that platform outside of a party structure, outside of an election term. This isn't about getting someone elected. This is about the marketplace of ideas.
First few posts on your organization's social media are related to fentanyl crisis, Measure 110, former Governor Kate Brown's commutations, and the person of interest in the deaths of multiple women. Why highlight those issues and stories first?
Because those are, in fact, really, really in line with what I think are some of the greatest challenges facing our state. So when I heard from Oregonians when I was running for governor, they were concerned about just the prevalence of fentanyl. Fentanyl isn't like every other drug we've ever seen. We know that. There was, I don't know if you were able to read the Willamette Week story.
Yep.
What an incredible piece of journalism. And it told a story that I think that all Oregonians suspect, but in such a clear and profound way that I hope that it will continue to drive the conversation. The legislature had an opportunity to repeal Measure 110, have the collaborative conversation about what to do to replace it, to recognize that we have on our hands right now spun out of control. This drug crisis has spun out of control. And so we need to continue to elevate that issue. We need to bring it to policymakers, to people that are in positions of power, and say, Oregonians still care about this. We must work together to fix it.
What do you think needs to happen to Measure 110 now? Because the discussion's been out there to repeal it. It didn't seem to be the effort to make that happen. So what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, policymakers definitely nibbled around the edges. They had the opportunity to recognize, what we've been seeing in article after article. This is not a success story. We've given it more than ample time. We need to rethink this idea that possession of hard drugs should in fact be legal. And so it should be a repeal and replace. We need to continue to focus on funding. We need to continue to focus on providing more access to services, where there's a door wherever anybody wants to enter through a door for treatment, they need to be able to find that door. And when we talk about the emergency that is our homeless crisis, you cannot do anything but recognize we also have an emergency in addiction rates in our state. And when we have a fire, summer's fire season here, we don't just depend on the firefighting forces that we have in state. When we need it, we bring more hands in. And we have the level of crisis right now when it comes to addiction recovery, access to addiction recovery services, behavioral health supports. I don't understand why we're not bringing in all the hands that are available from everywhere to say we've got to address this in a very serious way. We need to think about it differently.
Do you see yourself doing some lobbying when it comes to some of these issues to the legislature? Or?
Well, I have to believe that this C4 is going to provide an opportunity to bring people together to have these conversations outside of partisan politics, outside of an election, and I'm really optimistic that it can lead to conversations that could be very productive.
You see it bridging this political divide that we have? Because it's a wide one, we know.
It is a wide one, but it's also a wide one because of special interests. Special interests have a stake in maintaining the status quo. And so they deeply invest in election season to say, oh, remember how different you are? Remember how much you're afraid of them? Remember how much you don't like them? But Oregonians themselves don't have that same investment in the status quo. They look around and they say, things still aren't working. Who's going to stand up? Who is going to have this conversation? It's got to be fixed. And so while we are divided when it comes to election season, I believe outside of that, Oregonians are united in really wanting a better future for their kids, for this moment, for themselves. I know that for people that are trying to sell their homes in Portland, it is past time for the crisis on the streets in Portland to be resolved. And finger pointing isn't going to get it done. And the elections didn't result in the kind of dramatic change with the state of emergency that was declared that we had all hoped for. And it's time to say what's missing.
You got a lot of support in this last election for governor, and you almost won the thing, to be honest with you. Do you ever sit there and say, I'm going to give it another shot in a few years, or for perhaps another office that you'll run?
I believe, as I mentioned, I just want to make a difference. I do not think that a person has to have a title to engage. Having said that, I love public service, and I love being a voice on behalf of Oregonians. And so someday I might stand up and say, I am asking for your support. But today is an opportunity to say Oregonians' voices need to have a stronger platform outside of party politics in our state, and there needs to be a conduit for their voices to be heard in the marketplace of ideas. Do
you have any relationship, any communication with Governor Kotek to this day?
I bumped into her at an event, and she came over and said hello. It was good to see her.
No job offers, though, from the governor coming your way at this point, huh?
I think we're both busy on our own path at the moment.
I'm sure of that. Christine Drazan, her new organization is called A New Direction. Am I right on that one?
You are right.
A New Direction. Hey, if you're going to run for office, this would be the perfect time to announce it right here.
I'll be back if you want to have that conversation. But thank you for having me.